everyone. Thanks for making some time on your Wednesday evening. I know everyone's busy. My name is Jordan. I think I probably know most of you, but I'm the executive director here at the market, and I'm excited to offer to be here for this opportunity tonight. So thanks for joining us. Stephanie told me to share what I shared at the last one, and I don't remember what I did yesterday, much less what I said a month ago. But I will say, we do a lot of work at the market, and I think a lot of the businesses here in the room, they know what happens on the street. But one of the things that we're really most passionate about as an organization is seeing our businesses here in Southwest Washington succeed. And that looks like a lot of different ways, but we're so excited to offer a great market for you guys, and Kelsey and her team do a lot of work there. But we really want to provide sort of that sort of well-rounded service to you. So that's why we do events like this. It's like we do our happy hours, sort of social hours on alternating months, which you'll hear more about. But I just want to thank you for being here. This is an interesting topic. Because we're all so busy and hiring is really hard. And so I think when I talk to small businesses in the market, and I do spend a lot of time doing that, I hear from a lot of folks who are they're just too busy to step away and they're getting burned out by their business. And employees are why having employees can bring a lot of challenges. It also brings all this opportunity for growth, and it helps you sort of level up your business and gives you some more capacity to work on your business, maybe not in your business, as you may hear. But it's hard, and it's really hard to do. I got really lucky. We have Kelsey and Stephanie on the call, and I just happened to get lucky by getting some great members of our team. But it's a challenge, and so I'm really excited that Charlene's going to share and Josh is going to share about how you can grow your business appropriately and grow your team so that you aren't busy just constantly working at markets and doing those things, and you can actually expand and find some time and some peace and actually make a scalable business. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Stephanie, and thanks again for being here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for that introduction. I'm Stephanie Clark. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Programs at the Vancouver Farmers Market, and we are recording this. We've gotten a lot of requests from folks who can't be here tonight. So hopefully this is helpful to them as well. I am really excited. We are here at our June Small Business Workshop. I'm really excited to have Charlene join us. Charlene is a small business owner. I think you have two, maybe three, maybe four businesses at this point. Charlene was a vendor at the Vancouver Farmers Market for several years with Panache paper art, and has now built a consulting business to help small business owners, and does amazing work with MISO, another small business development organization in the Portland metro area. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Charlene, and they are going to walk us through Hiring 101 for farmers markets.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead and share my screen and get that all set up for you. Okay. There we go. Okay. So we are going to focus this evening on tips that will help you, of course, feel a little bit more confident and prepared when bringing someone into your business, because that can be difficult. And if you've been working alone in your business for a while, it can be a little intimidating as well. So this is going to focus on hiring specifically for you all. So for market vendors, because that's a lot different than hiring somebody for more of a 9 to 5. So we're going to look at things just for market vendors. Our agenda this evening, it looks quite lengthy, but I broke it up into little pieces. So we're going to go over hiring readiness. So how you know that you're ready to hire someone. What you need to do before you actually post or put the job out there in the world, how to write a job description. We're going to go over recruiting and evaluation. And then really important one for markets is training and onboarding. And then we're going to talk a little bit about compensation, retention, and support. And then we'll go over some resources that I have for y'all. And then we'll do a Q&A. Okay, so jumping right in, of course, hiring is a very big milestone. If you're considering it, like super congrats. And it can not only give you more time, but it can help you concentrate more on your business, but it can also give you the opportunity to kind of step back from things a little bit and give you that one step away from that direct customer interaction that can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming, especially, you're the business owner, you're likely making the products, those kinds of things. So it gives you the kind of that one step of removal. So before posting a job, you need to be super clear on why you're hiring. And this is a big one, especially for any neurodivergent folks. You need to figure out what success looks like to you. So for me, success is like done. It's all checked off. All the, T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and everything is in its place. But success doesn't always look the same to everyone. So you kind of have to gauge what it is that you're looking for and what that will mean for you. You need to ask yourself a couple of questions just to kind of gauge where you're at. So the first one, which I think is maybe the most important one, is whether or not you're actually financially ready to take on the expense of hiring someone. So I did debate hiring someone for my booth, and I found out that I was, I figured out, I did all the math and everything, and I was like, nope, like I don't have enough to cover that. So you will not only need to pay them fairly for their time at the market, but you also need to consider perhaps additional time for setup, transportation, parking, and incentives as well, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So you need to calculate all of the things into your figures and make sure that you know exactly what impact that is going to have on your overall bottom line. The second question is kind of what you're looking for help with. So I know a couple of vendors have people that come and help them set up their booths. So if you're having a really hard time setting things up, or sometimes it's the opposite. I actually worked for another vendor for a while and they came and they set up the booth and then I just worked in it and did like sales. So you may be looking to have that kind of arrangement. So where somebody helps you with sales and transactions, product restocking, if they can, you run out of something in the middle of the day and they can go back and get it, or customer service. So if you want somebody that's a little more customer forward and you kind of want to take a little bit of a backseat but still be there, you might be able to do that as well. The third one is, do you have time to train and support this person? So this is a huge one for small business owners. We don't have a lot of extra time on our hands, and training somebody to do something and making sure going through the job process to actually hire somebody does take quite a bit of time. So you need to gauge if you have the amount of time that it needs to take to actually go through the process and not kind of rush through it, because that can lead to hiring people that like aren't committed to the job or aren't very well suited to it. And that can just lead to more turnover and more time spent on, this thing that you kind of want to move along from, and, you want to expand or something else that's going to keep you from those goals. So the fourth one is whether or not you have ample coverage if the person you're hiring needs time off, if they're a no-show, or they quit without notice. So hopefully we can prevent that from happening, that last one. But I have been witness to, several vendors who like aren't there that week and they come the next week and, I've asked them what happened and they were like, oh, well, the person that I hired to, do sales and stuff at my booth, they, let me know 5 minutes before the market was supposed to start that I'm not, they're not able to be there. And then they'd had no idea and they weren't able to find any coverage or anything like that. So having a contingency plan in place and knowing if you do have that coverage, just in case something happens, is quite important. So before you post the job, take a moment to kind of get your ducks in a row. If you make preparations beforehand, it's going to make a huge difference later. So getting everything, prepared and prepped, and ensuring that you have all the things that you need to have done so you can bring this person in smoothly is going to save you a lot of stress down the line. So what you need to have ready before you kind of post the job or bringing someone on. First, of course, you need a job description or a task list, and that'll be the next one that we go over. So this doesn't really have to be fancy. If you're posting the job, you need to kind of make it a proper job description with all the bells and whistles of the information that you need to be clear about. But it does need to be a clear summary of what the job includes and what you'll need help with. You'll need to think about pay rate and a schedule. So make sure that you're super honest with yourself about what you can afford. Ensuring that you have kind of a budget ahead of time seems a little bit backwards sometimes. But if you decide on a budget beforehand, you know exactly what you're able to offer the person and kind of your constraints if, they want to negotiate or something like that. And then doing hours and shifts in advance is great as well, because then you can communicate that to the person farther down the line. You'll also need to sort out how you're going to pay them. So are they going to be a proper employee, so a W-2 employee? Are they going to be a contractor, which you'll need to sort out 1099 forms? Will you use an app like Square Payroll? Will you pay them by check, or will you pay them by cash or like EFT? There's lots of different systems that you can use. I know Square Payroll is fairly simple and easy, and you can actually pay per contractor with them. So that's one of the things that you'll have to sort out, kind of how you're going to pay them. Then again, your availability to train. So if you have the time to train this person, you'll need to sort out when that would be. Kind of pick a date or a particular time that would be great. If it's a less busy market day, or if at one point in the season you're usually less busy than at other points, then it may be good to do your hiring around then so that you'll know you have time to train them. The last one, super important, is your contact process. So how are they going to apply? Will you do it over social media? So they'll like DM you. Will they email a resume? Is it going to be like a text exchange? I would pick one method and then stick to it. Typically, if you have like 15 different methods, you might get lost in terms of, where people are coming from, and then getting back to that applicant might be a little bit, a little bit hairy. So I would suggest kind of pick with the method. You can, sprinkle it everywhere, but like make sure, on everything it says email the resume. So there's a consistent way that things are coming in. Okay, so let's talk about writing a hopefully simple and clear job description. So even a super small like market, if you're doing 2 days a week part-time job, deserves a clear description, and it sets expectations for the person who is coming onto the job. So within the description, be specific about the hours, the days needed, and the pay. I've actually heard from a lot of people that they will not apply to a job if it doesn't list the amount of compensation that is on the description. So make sure you put that on there. If it can be negotiated or something, you might put that in there. If you're, still not sure what exactly it's going to be, but try and sort all that stuff out before you get it out there. Then you'll want to add in the responsibilities. So are they setting up? Are they striking? Are they taking things down? Are they restocking? Do they need to be able to use Square or systems like that? Will they be greeting customers? Kind of the things that you expect them to do on the day-to-day. Then another thing you want to add in there is your expectations. So your expectations around professionalism, communication, and reliability. Be upfront about that. Just to make sure, again, it sets the expectations, and you will get better applicants this way if you are upfront about things. You should avoid vague phrases like team player, which is the ultimate one that I dislike the most. And focus on behaviors that you can observe. So things that are actionable is kind of what you want to put in there. Team player doesn't really say a lot because that can be, a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it's not really helpful for them to know what is expected. You can use AI to create an outline and kind of fill it in with the details that are relevant to your position. So you can just ask it, um, give me a sample job description, and then you can definitely go ahead and fill it in, and it will give you a nice outline. And I also have a take home for y'all that is all about writing a job description, and it gives you the different sections and stuff like that that you need to add in, and it gives you more specific kind of examples of that as well. And last, even if you're hiring informally, a written description definitely helps you train more effectively, and it will help you keep track of what you need down the line as well. Okay, so recruiting candidates. So you can post your job. If you're not going to post it and you're just going to inquire, that is okay as well. But post it where your people already are. So where people will see it. So social media is a great one, especially on local groups or your business page. You can ask other market vendors or loyal customers if they know someone. And I, as a market vendor, was working for other market vendors. So I have definitely been in that situation. You can reach out to past applicants. So this is a great way to make if you actually make your job process formal, then you'll have like a log of past applicants. You're like, oh, this person was great, but I had to choose between this person and this person, and maybe I could reach out to them again and see if they're still looking for work. So you automatically have a little pool that you might be able to reach out to people. And those are great, especially if you need to fill the position on short notice. These people were already interested and they already applied for a position with you. So that might be a good way to do it. Personal referrals is another one that can work really well. However, a lot of times when you do personal referrals, it's somebody, my friend's sister wants a job. Sometimes those they can feel a little bit more of, just kind of a friend helping out. So make sure that person understands that this is a real job with real expectations. Be really open and honest with them, and it's not really anybody doing anybody else a favor. So when you start to get in applications, make sure you respond quickly when someone applies. Waiting too long, if you have your job, I suggest you leave it active if you post it somewhere for at least 2 weeks to get a good number of applicants. But if you wait until that time is over, the person may have moved on already. You're like, oh, this person sent in their application like the very first day. I love them, but I'm just gonna wait. I would suggest not waiting and get in touch with them right away because people are moving very quickly. And that person, get back to them in 2 weeks and they might be like, oh, I'm sorry, I already got another position. So make sure you move on it quickly because it could mean missing a good fit. Okay, so interviewing and evaluating. So I use a self-scheduler. Mine is called Calendly, and my Calendly note taker, hi, Calendly note taker, is in this meeting. So I use that one, and you can set up the free version is very functional. I used the free version for about 6 years, and then this year I broke down and actually am using the paid version now. But you can set up a calendar and you can just send the link to people and they can go in there and schedule on their own. So it takes away a lot of that back and forth. Oh, are you available at 2? No, I'm not available at 2, but I'm available at 2:45. And, all of that kind of back and forth and setting up a time. And it links with Zoom, even the free version does. So ensuring you have something like that can, cut out the amount of time that it's going to take to really do all that back and forth and ensure you have everything set up. And it has a really cool note taker with it now. And it, takes notes and gives you summaries and all that kind of stuff. And that's always helpful if you want to go back through when you're doing a Zoom call, and you want to kind of rewatch your interview. So you can, speaking of interview questions, you can also use AI to generate a list of specific questions for your job. You can get AI to, spit you out a list of very kind of, vague questions if you want. But if you put in your job description and say, hey, please, give me a list of 10 questions that are tailored to this specific position, it's going to pick out those items that are going to be relevant. And that can at least give you a jumping off point and make it a little bit easier so you don't have to sit there for hours trying to come up with questions that aren't like, hey, what if you could be any flavor of ice cream? What would you be? Which is not really relevant, not going to help you at all. So AI is always kind of a great jumping off point for that kind of thing. It's always best to ask open-ended questions that show things like reliability. So you can ask things like, can you give me an example of when you handled a busy shift? Something like that that's open-ended, but kind of as well specific, so they can give whatever example they want. And then you can kind of make your evaluation on that. Coachability. So how do they like to receive feedback is a great question to ask as well, because you'll know right away whether or not kind of that meshes. Some people are resistant to feedback. Some people don't like face-to-face feedback, that kind of thing. And keep in mind that other market vendors or your customers may actually provide feedback as well if they notice, like, oh, I've noticed that nobody's ever at your booth. Why is that? And then that's some feedback that you'll have to pass on to your employees. So know that that may come down the line. And the last one is the customer service vibe. So you kind of want to gauge how that they're going to greet somebody at the booth, their overall demeanor. If they're meeting you for the first time, if you're doing this in person, then it's definitely going to, you're going to have a vibe. How do they meet a person for the first time? Are they personable? Are they approachable? Do you think they're just going to sit in the corner and not, interact with any of your customers? So things like that you can definitely get, and you can get that from a Zoom call as well if that's the way you need to handle it. So when you evaluate, I love to create a matrix just because I'm that kind of organized person. Love a spreadsheet. And I do like, oh, scoring 1 through 5 on this. So you can create a matrix and like make little marks where you want to, or however is easiest for you to organize your thoughts around your different applicants. However, you do need to evaluate people with an open mind, but do look for any red flags on their resume that might signal that they're not a good fit. So, things like, oh, I've worked 10 market jobs before. Okay, that might be a little excessive. Like, why have you worked 10? Maybe the season just ended and they're, like a perennial person that always works the market, but kind of dig around a little deeper in those kinds of things. Never evaluate anyone on a bias. Typically, I do give a hiring class for MISO, and one person was like, yes, we try to cover the names and the locations and stuff like that, so that we're only looking at the qualifications. And that's sometimes very, very hard, especially if you're getting stuff via email and you see all that information right away. So try to evaluate on the least amount of bias as you can. In this case, location may be something that plays into it because you want to make sure that they can get to the market, or they're nearby, or they have transportation to get there. So it's definitely something that is you can evaluate off of. The interview doesn't have to be formal. A short phone or video chat works to measure first impressions. You can also take note of how they behave during the application process is a big one. So if somebody, takes 3 days to get back to you and, you say, oh, I'd like to speak with you in 2 days, and they never get back to you. And after 3 days, they're like, oh, I'm sorry about that. then it may not be the best fit. So make sure you pay attention to that kind of thing. And do they seem excited about the job? Like, are they invested in your company? Find out kind of what draws them in. And that way they'll be more excited about helping people at the market to view your products and things like that. Also, be clear about your needs. Don't kind of oversell the role, and be open and upfront about your training capacity as well. So what it is going to take, like, oh, I want to have you, for a couple days at the market. You're going to be with me a couple days, but then I'm going to expect you to be on your own. Are you comfortable with that? That kind of thing. And make sure that there are a couple of questions. There are probably a lot more than a couple. In different locations, it differs state by state, usually, that you legally cannot ask someone. So do make sure that you sort out if there's any legalities. Typically, those go with never evaluate on a bias. But for instance, if you're asking for a reference, you can't ask the person can't tell you why the person was fired if they were fired. So those kinds of things might be relevant. So you might be able to find a list of questions that you are legally not allowed to ask. After the evaluation and the interviews, always do a check-in with your gut. Sometimes that's the first indicator that like the person is not going to be a good fit. If you're just like, oh, I'm not feeling it, then that might be a sign that they're not going to kind of represent your business. Be clear when making an offer and set expectations so that they know exactly what they're getting into, and make sure that they know the next steps as well. Last but most importantly, this is a big one for me. Always get back to all of your candidates, regardless of whether or not you decide to move forward with them. So I know the farmers market does this. Yay. But I always have trouble if way back when I was applying for jobs, I would be so disappointed. I'd send off, my information and then nothing would happen. And sometimes people, take months to get back to you. So it's great to know yes or no either way. We're not moving forward with your application. Okay, cool. I can move on and not, wait for this anymore. So it's not only helpful for yourself to kind of clear out everything and make sure that you have a no pile, but it's great for the applicant as well. So then they know that they're not kind of hanging on and waiting for this job that's not going to happen. Okay, big one. So after you bring on your person, you want to do your training and onboarding. So having an onboarding packet, a binder, whatever you want to call it, with all the information ever, is always a great way to go. So I've actually been helping one of my clients who is expanding their business. We're currently doing this now, even though we have like employees already, but having this in your arsenal is always great. So you can, again, use AI to create an outline. So for mine, I said, hey, I would like to create an onboarding, pamphlet for new employees. This is the industry, and they're in California. So is there anything specific legally in California that we need to train them on or anything like that? And AI spit out a great outline. And then I was able to go in and add some things where I wanted to. But again, it's a great jumping off point because a lot of the things like I didn't know a lot of the things that were specific to California. And there were some things that maybe I would have forgotten otherwise. So that's a great way to kind of start if you do not have an onboarding packet or anything like that. It should include things like your mission and value statements, information about your products. You can have kind of product sheets if you want, so they get all that information. Your expectations for interacting with customers, how and when they are paid, which is a big one, how they take payments, so how they're interacting with customers, and kind of, what equipment they use, what is the process if something goes wrong with the equipment, is there a number that they call? business licenses, food handling cards, and I will mention that one again in a minute, and maps to the market to facilitate things like parking, because they're not going to have that information. That's information that's going to come from the farmers market to you specifically. So it's important that you have that information in there so that it is given to anybody that's working for you. Your training should include quite a few different things. So market jobs do require that people are fairly quick learners and they can kind of navigate things on their own because there are a lot of different things that can happen. Your tent can blow away, all these little things that are kind of, they just pop up. So you still need to set them up with success by giving them as much information as possible. So creating a short checklist or like a cheat sheet or day one if it's their first day. Things like setup order, cash box rules, key talking points about each product, having that information there in instruction format, make it repeatable, something like signage, clipboards, or laminated cards for reference. In case it gets busy, they get frustrated, they know what they can pick up to find the information they need. You should also have a system for explaining how far in advance they need to inform you of an absence and how. So, informing you 5 minutes before the market is supposed to start, not great. So what they need to do and how they need to get that information to you. What to do if something goes wrong or there's bad weather, like the tent's blowing away, what do we do about that? Who they can text or ask for help beyond asking the market managers. So it's something that goes wrong with a product or, something like that. Who do they contact? How do they contact them? Who may visit the booth and ask for something official? This is a big one. I have been in this situation. Things like the health department, the fire marshal, anybody that might come to your booth looking for, food handling cards, anything like that. I know quite a while ago, the fire marshal was going around to make sure the tents weren't flammable. They had to be a specific, tent type and like, okay. And when I was working for another vendor, I saw the health department person going around and I was like, what is this? And we had something that was cold and it has to be stored at a very specific temperature. And I had no idea what to do. So I was madly texting the owner, like, what do I do? And she's like, okay, here's all the information you need. Here's what you need to tell them if they come around. And luckily they didn't. They got the person like across from me. But yeah, so it's one of those things that you need to be prepared for and make sure that the person that is in your booth is prepared for as well. Another really good one is how to handle downtime. So don't leave your booth every 5 seconds kind of thing. If the market is slow, what do they need to do? I had, a friend who was working for somebody and they would bring a coloring book. So they would color when the market, was slow, but they would still be in the booth. So what your expectations are on how they handle downtime. So your booth is manned, but people aren't leaving it, so your customers can be assisted when they come around. Do consider having them shadow you for at least one market weekend. I would say more than one is preferable, depending on how busy it is. So they can get a taste of what slow is like and what to do and what, insanely busy is like. And make sure you pay them for that time as well. So don't oh, this is part of your training, I'm not going to pay you for this. Make sure you do definitely pay them for that and that it's included in their time. And don't leave them on their own until you know that they're ready. So don't be like, okay, I'm leaving toodles. Make sure that they are very, very comfortable and that they are okay with being left on their own and they don't have like any more burning questions and you think they can handle themselves. Okay, so in terms of compensation and incentives, which is a big one. So as we all know, markets are a lot of work and your employees should be compensated fairly for their time. We do know that market jobs are often on the lower end of the wage scale, so it's going to be a part-time position. Typically, nobody is just going to be living off the, market as an employee there. But you can still be competitive by being creative. So some creative compensation ideas. One is sales-based bonuses. So when I was working for another vendor, I did get a bonus. We would typically sell out almost every day at like 11. And if we sold out, I did get a bonus. So I had, an incentive to get the product moved. I had an incentive to stay in the booth because I knew we'd probably sell out by 11. Um, and then if there was product left over, I could have some of that product that was left over because it was something that was food based. So I was allowed to take, a certain amount of that home if we did have things that were left over. So that kind of, evened out my compensation. And a lot of vendors actually give their employees a trade budget. I see this happen a lot. I had quite a few regular customers, I would say, when I was there, and they'd be like, okay, so I have $10 left in my trade budget today. Like, what can I get? So it's definitely a great way, and usually all the market vendors like each other's products and stuff like that. So it's a great way to give them money for, groceries or whatever they might need, and to share your products with other vendors. You can also give lunch stipends as well. They're going to have to eat lunch while they're there. So you can definitely give them an extra amount that they can spend on lunch so they don't have to cover that themselves. And the last one, which might be possible, might not be, is flexible scheduling. So if you have a way to be flexible with scheduling, if it's like you and this other person, or if you can give somebody, oh, I'll give you, the pick of the shifts that you want, or if you want to work Saturday or Sunday, kind of be flexible about that. That's another great incentive because people will feel like they have a little bit more control over the situation. But whatever you choose in terms of compensation, communicate it clearly and stick to it. And if you do have a contract with this person, make sure that these compensation practices are listed within the contract as well. Like, oh, you get $25 of trade budget a week, and that is included within your overall compensation package. Okay. Almost last but not least is retention and support. So retention is a huge one. So you want to be able to keep this person with you, especially now that the market is year-round. So if you are a year-round market person, you definitely want somebody that will stick with you. And part of the way to get there is being honest and upfront about expectations. And that goes a long, long way. So if people are comfortable, they know what to expect, they're going to want to stick around with you. But if you don't communicate with them, then it's going to, cause some friction. So definitely be responsive with them. When I was working, for the other vendor, everybody was really, really responsive. They would check in with me and be like, oh, we're sold out at this location. Are you sold out? So throughout the day, I would get like little updates from them. So it wasn't like I was totally alone there. I did have somebody to communicate with. You could do this with like a 5-minute debrief at the end of the day, see what's happening. And that can give you a lot of insight as a business owner as well, what you might need to do better in the future, or, like, oh, okay, tomorrow, just like change this or whatever. You can ask them similar questions like, what worked for you today? What questions do you have? Just to make sure that they are getting all the information they need. And recognition matters. So a thank you note, like a high five, really could go a long way. Giving them a slightly increased trade budget if they're doing really well, like you see your sales increasing because this person has come on with you, then definitely make sure that they know that they're appreciated. And, don't kind of like, oh, well, I pay you, that should be enough. But definitely that recognition goes a long way. And last, respect their time off. So they do ask for time off if you have that capacity, and model a work-life balance. So always, I think a lot of market vendors are terrible at work-life balance. I'm going to be really honest. And so it can be hard to kind of put yourself in that position and set a good example for your employee that they also need to have a good work-life balance because it is super, super difficult. So make sure you kind of set the tone for them and they know, like, if they have an emergency or something, they can ask you for the time. Okay, so a couple of final reminders. So hiring isn't just about finding somebody, it's about keeping them. So making sure that you give them all the tools that they need is going to be super, super important. Setting expectations early, training them clearly, and communicating often will oftentimes be the key to keeping someone as well. So make sure you have all those ducks in a row. You know what you need to do and how you need to get there, and it will definitely pay off in the end. And I do have a couple of take homes for y'all that Stephanie is going to send out. So you'll receive a copy of these slides. There is a one sheet in there about your job description, the different sections and examples of what, you know, a snazzy kind of job description might be. And then I actually have a copy of a guide that I wrote, which is it's very short, but it contains a lot of more in-depth information. So it is centered around hiring virtual assistants, but there's a lot of stuff like making your matrix and how you evaluate people. So it's a little bit more in-depth, and it does come with activities and stuff at the end to kind of walk you through the process. So you'll receive all of those from Stephanie. Okay, any questions?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Charlene. That was a wealth of information. And I have a couple questions, but I want to, give everyone a chance to think about your questions. But I'll just kick off some questions. I'm curious because you have worked for another market vendor, what did you find most helpful? In terms of like learning about how to talk about someone else's product?
That's a super good question. I found it really helpful. Like they sat me down and they were like, okay, here is the like kind of the tagline that we use for everything. Here's more about our product. They told me all about their product. Like I was under the impression they were pizza crusts. So I was under the impression that they were like par baked, and they're like, no, no, they're fully baked. So like we went over the products a lot to iron that out. And then I was able to develop like my little elevator speech when anybody would walk up, like, oh, have you had our pizza crust before? Well, here's what you need to know. So it definitely helped for me to have that information ahead of time and for them to sit me down and teach me about their product before I went in to sell it.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, perfect. Zach says, can you talk about employment taxes, W-2 versus 1099 tips, that kind of thing?
Super fun topic. Um, so W-2 is an actual employee that you'll have to register them as an employee. I don't know a lot about that because I've done that, like I've been that person, but I've never done that before. 1099s are independent contractors. So you will have to issue them a 1099 as part of your taxation kind of year end, and you have to have it, I think, done by January 31st. And so you'll get some similar information from them, but the definition of an employee versus an independent contractor is very, very different. So independent contractors have control over their own schedules, those kinds of things. It's a little bit more, freelance. They don't have access to anything like unemployment benefits or anything like that, but an employee would. I think with both of those, and anybody that knows better can correct me. With tips, I think you have to put those in both a regular employee tax return and the 1099. I know there's a box for it, but I've never had it filled out. So I'm not quite sure, but that does come through on the taxes. And I think you have to pay extra tax on tips as well if they are registered as part of your 1099 or your W-2. You are welcome, Zach.
And are there like instances where 1099 makes more sense? Because I would think, like, I know you have to classify them based on a couple of, points of like what they're doing and yeah, like like their control over their schedule. Like, would you say most market employees would fall under W-2, or do you think there is space in some instances for a 1099 employee?
I would say most of them are 1099 or they are not considered either, that they're just paid cash
Oh, okay.
from my experience. I do not know specifically. I can't talk, for anybody else, but that was kind of my experience that, yeah. So, yes.
Any other questions? Um,
Charlene, I have one question. So, how do you talk to your employees maybe during training about customer service? And do you have any tips on training for good customer service at farmers markets?
So I would say to definitely have something like expectations that you have, like, oh, I expect you to be like professional and be in your booth and stuff like that. But make sure that you go through with them kind of, how you want your customers to be treated. I do a full class on customer service. That's a new one that Miso is teaching. But definitely, if you're into it enough that you've like mapped your customer journey and things like that, you can definitely pick out points that are, pain points that you've seen in the past, and make sure that this person knows how to address them. Like, oh, we get really busy. People tend to get a little squidgy here, and that they know how to deal with those times. And you can even do, like kind of a role play kind of thing and be like, okay, if you were in this situation, what would you do? But make sure you try to give them as much information as possible to set them up for success with of as many different, kind of things as you can.
well, and Jacob, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
Hi. I was just gonna make some yeah, yeah, that was a great talk. You really made everything super comprehensive, and the ability to take this really complex topic and organize it into a really cohesive whole is just awesome. That was really great. Overall, it's not really a major part of my area, but I do have some things I just wanted to add into the pot on customer service and being in the market. The whole phenomenon of meeting 500 or 1,000 people. Um, One is the issue that a employee could be faced with if there is a difficult customer, and I have told this to other folks before, and I think it lands really well. Is that if you look up online, there's probably ten points on how to be good to customers. Make eye contact, stand up, do this, don't eat, don't get off your phone, that kind of thing, whatever it is. There's a list of 10 things. And if there's a difficult customer, I'll just take all those 10 things and I'll play them backwards, like just play it backwards. And it's incredible how it works to just water off a duck's back. And hopefully no one like that ever shows up. But it's real. I think that if I was bringing in an employee, it's really good to tell them where the fire alarm is, um, because there's any number of ways, being in public like that, you could get cornered into a difficult or an awkward or unappropriate situation with a potential customer, or someone in the crowd. Uh, the other thing I was going to say is that in downtime, you know, uh, preferably not as much time on the phone. It's just such a generic image, and I think that customers don't want to interrupt that moment, or I don't know. There's new psychology on that. I would definitely, if I was employing someone, I would say read a book or a coloring book over looking at a phone a lot. And then I always try and meet my neighbor, just say hi. And I think that that's stability and security in the neighborhood, since we're going to be neighbors with each other through the day. But yeah, anyways, I just wanted to add that. Thank you for such a great talk.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. Yeah, I think encouraging your employees to meet market neighbors is so key, so they can be really just keyed into the community just as much as our business owners are. Any other questions for Charlene? Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And really excited to send everyone out those resources. So I am going to pass sorry, I'm trying to push my cat out of the way. I'm gonna pass the mic per se to Josh Williams with Cali Cantina. And Josh, go ahead and introduce yourself and a little bit about your business. And then we are just looking forward to hearing all about your experience as a market vendor right now, hiring and training and managing employees.
Oof. All right, well, Josh Williams. I am the co-owner of Cali Cantina, a Filipino street and comfort food stall at the market. But I was also the owner of 200 Cats Hot Sauces. Also at the market for a couple of years, so I've kind of know hiring people for retail-ish and more food stuff now. Two different ball games between hiring those two, because for the Angry Cats part, it was just, hey, get them to know the product, and then you can kind of let them do their thing after, testing them through and getting them caught up. But for the food side, it's getting them every time I have a new dish out, I'm like, all right, cool. Here's the flavor profiles. Here's how you should sell it. Here's how, try it first. Because I had a employee, someone asked him like, hey, what do you think's good? He's like, I don't know. I just work here. And I was like, oh, don't say that, please. So at the end of the day, I sent him home with one of everything. I'm like, try it all. Like, we need to get you caught up. Um, but one of the issues that we kind of have is retention, which is something I kind of perked up about, especially when the winter time comes, because we're not making the big summer money then. So we're like, all right, we have to cut back, we have to roll back our team, and hopefully we can bring them back during the summer falls. But that's like 6 months ahead. Like, are they going to be in the same position? Will they even be around? So it's trying to find that balance of trying to keep them, because like you mentioned earlier, um, this is not a pay your bills job. This is a pocket money. You don't need a lot of gas money, or even just want to shop around at the market for a little bit. So it's kind of hard as a business owner to want them to stay like you would stay. You're like, oh yeah, I'm in it for everything. Um, but in that mindset, they're not thinking that same way. They're like, I'm here for 5 hours, run and done type of thing. Um, but we got lucky with hiring for both of the companies when we did it. Um, for us, it was best to find someone that was actually familiar with your product already, that was already fans on your social media, and you made a post there, and then they reached out like, I would love to work a Saturday shift or a Sunday thing, or whatever, because then they're already in that mindset of, I love the product, I would love to be part of the team, instead of someone coming in brand new, and then you have to work through the motions of getting them to essentially like the product and have that enthusiasm that would come with someone that is already like a fan of yours. I've had seen both parts of the spectrum. One brand new guy, which is the guy's like, I don't know, I just work here. And then my recent employees that are like big fans. We want to be part of the Filipino community. I'm part Filipino. And I was like, great, come join the team. Let's grow this community. And so they've been very enthusiastic and they want to work more hours. And I'm like, great. If I had more hours to give you, I would do that. But it's just kind of tiptoeing this line of how are they going to work, especially for if you're not going to be there. At the food business, I'm there 24 hours, whatever needs to be. I'm always going to be there. So they're always going to be able to fall back on me. And I can talk to all the inspectors and whatever. I'm like, you just stay at the front table. I'll handle this side of the tent. But with like retail things, it's a little bit harder. Like you mentioned, it's nice to have a contact information, either it be your neighbor that can help you out, some staff, or even just kind of numbers and give them out there to in case something happens. So it's a fun world to figure out. And pay wise, we do 1099. It's easier on kind of both ends. So it's like, hey, you're only doing 5 hours of work. Just make sure you're pulling a little bit aside, and it's less paperwork on our end because it's like I feel bad for taking those taxes out of like, here's the $100 you made. Now give me $10 back, and some or a little bit more. I don't know what the numbers are. So it's easier for 1099 to say, here's your cash, make sure to pay your taxes at the end of the year, or the government's going to come and get you. And then I'm not sure how tips work, because we just kind of give them the cash tips and we're like, here you go. That's all you go buy yourself some flowers or food. In terms of, we talked about like a lunch stipend or things like that. I used to do that for the Angry Cat side, give them an extra $20. I'm like, hey, here you go. Just go spend it on food, or if you don't want to eat it all, that's fine. $20 for you to do whatever. We do tend to pay a little bit higher than what normally. I think we pay starting off at 20. It's kind of hard to get someone Saturday or their Sundays to make it worth it. So we're like, okay, $20 is a good starting point, on top of tips, so they can end up walking away with like $120 to $150, depending on how the day. So for a 5 hour shift, that's not too bad. Yeah, it's a fun world working employees, especially when you've been doing it your whole time, and then you're like, I need help. So let's find someone that can hopefully fill my position. And it's hard to, especially for me, I like to control everything. I'm like, this is my baby. I need to have my hands in kind of everything. But at a certain point, you have to really just relinquish control to your employee after you get them trained up. You don't want to be a helicopter boss and just kind of like over their shoulder looking at everything they need to do. And so it's just kind of as a employer, you just need to let go and let them do their thing, because that's how they're going to grow. That's how you're going to grow. And then that's one less stress you got to worry about. Do I have an ear open all the time when they're speaking to customers? 100%. Just to make sure they're not going to say anything they shouldn't, or just to add a correction if need be. Uh, so yeah, I can only imagine the people that have more than two employees. I have two, and I'm like, oh, that's enough. Like I can't. So the people that have like 5 to 10, I'm like, I don't know how you do that, because I would have a hard enough time scheduling anyone out there.
Josh, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about, I think, we have a lot of folks who are just considering hiring their first employee, or they're not really
Hmm.
sure if they're there yet. Or like Charlene mentioned, like, we've done the numbers and maybe we're on the cusp of needing an employee, but maybe it's better to just do it alone. So I'm wondering if you can speak to like how you made your decision and knew you were ready to hire an employee for either business.
Yeah. For the hot sauce side, it was I needed to do more markets. I'm one person, I can't be working everything. So it was like, all right, I need to grow because I'm not growing anymore. I need to reach out to a wider audience. So that was kind of the tipping point on that. It was just like, all right, how many people do I need to do? How many markets am I gonna work? Finding employees that live near those markets so it's easier for them. That was a lot of just employment management. So that was earned on that end. For the food side, it's Grace and I were able to work it during the winter time because it's slow enough. We were able to take in orders. I can kind of plate and dish, but during the summertime, it's like everyone needs to be at their station. And Grace works a full-time job, so she's working at at the office 9 to 5, and then comes to help me at the weekend. So she doesn't really get a break. So it's kind of like, okay, baby, you need a break, or you're gonna kill me one of these days. So once we kind of get everything rolling, she'll be able to take a day off and actually enjoy herself, tend to her roses, which she just did today. So finding something else to do. Um, but yeah, it's and like Charlene was mentioning, you got to make sure you have the funds because end of the day, it kind of like sucks when if you have a slow day and you're like, ooh, the employee just took, a quarter to a half of the money I just made. Like, oh, that really hurts. So you need to be able to have that money beforehand to be like, boom, there's your pay, and then just kind of refill it as you go, and have that little nest egg. So you have to have another little pocket just for your employees that you can't touch. Yeah, leave it out there. Um, so just being your numbers are ready. Are you ready? Can you handle growth? That's another big question. Like, can you actually handle working the different markets? Can you produce enough? Because last thing you want is to show up and be like, oh, I have one thing out of the 5 items I normally have. Had that happen, and it's just like, why are we even at the market? Like okay, great, sold out in the first hour. All right, cool. Here's your $20. You can go home now. So yeah, just making sure you're ready for growth, you have the numbers, um, and just kind of seeing how the ebb and flow of the market is. Is it getting busier? You should probably ramp up to getting even just one more person to help you out with sales. Is to kind of helps tag team 2 different lines, depending how busy you're gonna get. And because if you're just one person like me, I was able to handle like 2 lines, but like some people, one line is hard enough. And so it's like having that second person that can just kind of jump in. Oh, I can help the next person. What do you want to order? Just to kind of help get this line just shuffling and moving.
Thank you. And we have a question from Zach. How do you train your employees to represent your brand and culture in a way that's consistent with the brand you've developed?
So we got pretty lucky how I mentioned how 2 of our employees are half Filipino as well. So they're already very familiar with their culture. And that was something that when we were looking kind of on our preferred list, but it wasn't you didn't need to be. You can be trained up, it's easy enough, but kind of diving in with already that information, it's relatable. You already know how to say the dishes, you already know what's in them. Um, and when I'm making a new dish, it's easier to train them on that. Just be like, hey, here are the ingredients for this. This is this dish. Have you had it before? Great. You already know everything. Here's what we put into it. Do we make ours gluten free? Yes. Is it vegan? Yes. And things like that. And then like when we have our lumpia, it's so people always are like, oh, what's lumpia? And they're like, oh, it's like an egg roll, but more meat. And so it's easier for someone who already grew up on that to have that, but easy enough to train someone. It's not end of the world. Just takes a little bit more time, and just having if I had an employee that wasn't Filipino, so getting them to help me prep in the kitchen got them a better understanding of the culture and the food. And as I'm helping them, they're helping me make the marinades. I'm explaining to them the history of the marinade. Like, this is where it came from. This is what's up. So becoming more culturally informed through cooking has been just a big project of ours. So it's kind of doing that. And he actually did his senior project on like Filipino food, and he passed it 100%. So I was like, great, I did my job. It was worth it. So just I think getting your employee to have hands-on to the product cements a bigger understanding of the culture.
Thank you. That was a really, really good response. And I'm
Thank you.
about all the, we have a lot of folks with market employees who have maybe never been to the kitchen or never been to the processing facility, never been to the farm. They just like meet at the market. And having that background knowledge is just going to help them sell your product better and
Exactly.
represent your brand. Any other questions for Josh? Anything at all?
I'm here all day.
I just wanted to chime in and say that Charlene, when you brought up like the importance of sharing information, like all of the possible information an employee could need about running a market is, and I think like that is one of the number one things we hear as market staff is like we know when employees come in and they look confused and they don't know where they're going and they haven't been told what their spot is or what equipment they need. Sometimes we have to loan them equipment. And so like that is so important. And I'm curious, Josh, like when you were operating more on the retail side and doing more markets, how are you communicating with your employees when you're at multiple locations?
I made sure that I spent probably a solid month with them on both Saturday and Sunday just to be like, here's the steps. You need to have these weights, or they will come get you, and the tent will fly away, and then I had to buy a new tent. I also had a small like SOP, just like a little like couple page handbook of like, here's the sauce, here's the ingredients, here's emergency contact, here's someone on staff you can reach out to, and just that little info, like an emergency handbook. It might take a little bit of while on your end to do it, but it's kind of like a one and done type of thing, unless you need to update it. But it's just nice to have, just so they're not scrambling, like they're not looking around with like, deer in the headlights type of thing. They're able to like fall back on that if need be. But I definitely like to make sure that my employees are ready to go. I'll even spend like a day just in the back as the assistant, be like, oh, here's sauces as they're placing orders, just so to make sure that they can run it by themselves, essentially. Because yeah, that's the last thing you want is to have an emergency and then they don't know what they're doing, and it's the big headache on both ends. While you're at your other market doing or that production, you're just kind of like, oh, now that's the problem I have to go deal with. Great, let's close everything down. So yeah, just making sure your employees are super prepared. Just a handbook, just extra training. I know a month into the season is, can be a little hard, but it's definitely worth it, especially if you're trying to retain people. They feel like that they're more prepared. So the less incidents they have, the more willing they're going to stay, probably.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, if there aren't any more questions, I just want to thank Charlene and Josh so much for sharing. We just really, really appreciate the wealth of knowledge. And if Kelsey, you want to pull up our slides, we just have a couple of reminders. So we have our next small business social hour in person. It's actually focused around customer service. So just continuing these conversations and, great to send your employees to this one too. We're actually going to run through some tough, potentially tough customer service situations and how to kind of work through those. So really excited for that. That's going to be Saturday, July 12th, 3:45 after the market at the Slocum House, and snacks and drinks are provided and AC if it's hot out. And then our next small business workshop, our next online workshop is going to be August 27th, back here on Zoom, 6 to 7:30. And then we still have continuing education scholarships available through the Vancouver Farmers Market Foundation. We have given away, oh gosh, I think about $3,000 so far this year. So we have $7,000 more available. And if you are taking a class or a workshop or wanting to go to a conference that, doing something that will advance your education and grow your business, please, apply for reimbursement through this program. We have some folks on the call who have gotten scholarships, and it's just a really good opportunity to offset the costs of those things. And then just a reminder of some other no-cost resources. So Business Impact Northwest has their Market Ready program. The fall course is coming up in August. This is a month-long course for market businesses. Really focused on like practical insights, how to make your market business work and grow, and then really like diving into that financial management side of things. And a reminder, there is a $500 award for completing the course that you can use for professional services or market equipment, stuff like that. And then we are still doing our one-on-one business coaching with Business Impact Northwest. So this is on-demand coaching from anything from business planning, getting ready to, apply for a loan, how to grow, how to improve your cash flow, profitability, really anything that you're needing. We can, we have coaches to help with that. And just a reminder, if you complete 3 one-on-one coaching sessions with Business Impact Northwest before the end of the year, you will get a $300 rent credit towards your booth fees at the Vancouver Farmers Market. So you're basically getting paid $100 per session. And we still have I think 7 like spaces available. So definitely lots of opportunity there. This is the link to sign up. I will send it out with the recording and the email in this so you have it. And Angela, thank you for your question. I will send out the registration link for the Market Ready program in the email with the recording of this workshop. And then the Greater Vancouver Chamber has their Business Pod program. I know a couple of people have been already working with their business coaches and engaging with this program, but there's everything from educational workshops, consultations, individual coaching, and then cohort coaching sessions. Again, all no cost. I will send out these resources again with the recording, and just, if you are looking to learn and to grow, these are some really great opportunities. And with that, I want to thank you all for being here tonight and taking the time. And again, thank you to our speakers for providing such great information on hiring and training and retaining and managing employees. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.